The Sapphire Dominion is one of 7 seas in a world surrounded by endless ocean. It was built on the backs of 4 floating citadels that are anchored to the seabed by 4 enormous chains of sapphire. These chains were forged by the legendary sea gods when they first came up from the depths to bind the islands to the mortal realm. The god King Kaelen rules over his people with an iron fist and commands the most powerful navy the world has ever seen. His ships are powered by tide magic, and his soldiers wear enchanted armor that lets them breathe underwater. His dominion stretches as far as the eye can see. There isn't a single ship that dares to set sail without paying tribute to him, and none can compete with the scale of his armada. But lately, strange things have been happening. First, it started with whispers of a lost ship here, a drowned village there, and then suddenly a raging storm unlike any other tore through the empire. The winds howled like hungry beasts, and the waves crashed against the shores like angry gods. For 3 days and nights, the elements raged until the storm finally subsided, leaving behind a deathly silence. As the citizens of Virelia emerged from their homes, shaken but relieved, they saw with horror that one of the sapphire chains had been shattered by the storm. The worst part, an entire island had broken away from the rest of the Dominion, and because it was the largest armory the Empire had ever seen, its absence would devastate the military. It wasn't just a simple chain that had snapped either, it was the whole damn anchor. If the other chains were also loose, then the entire Dominion could collapse, and everything they had ever known could be washed away in a single night. The Emperor convened an emergency meeting with his most trusted advisors, the Tide Lords, who were masters of the very magic that flowed through the veins of every living citizen of Virelia. They cast their divination spells, but all they saw was murky chaos. The future was shrouded in darkness, leaving them no choice but to send for Captain Aris, the most skilled navigator and commander in the Sapphire Dominion's navy. He would go out and find the drifted island and bring it back at any cost. Aris knew he didn't have much time to spare. The longer the armory remained missing, the more likely it was that the remaining chains would also snap. He assembled a search party consisting of 30 of the fastest ships in the Dominion's fleet, each equipped with special gear designed to anchor ships in midair. The mission was dangerous and desperate, but the fate of the Empire rested on his shoulders. But when they finally found the drifted island, they discovered something that shocked them all. No one had been aboard. In fact, there was no sign of life anywhere. Where were the sailors? Why had they abandoned the island? As the captain investigated further, he uncovered a secret passage leading deep into the heart of the island. What he found inside changed everything. The Emperor had always told his people tales of the sea gods who had blessed them with the Dominion and bound the islands to the mortal realm with the sapphire chains. But what if those stories were nothing but lies? What if the chains were actually curses binding them to this world against their will? The idea was so audacious that he dismissed it as madness, yet couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. He returned to the surface and noticed something peculiar about the water. Despite the chaotic currents caused by the broken chain, the surface of the ocean around the island was eerily calm. It was as if someone or something was keeping it that way. As he watched, a school of fish suddenly appeared, swimming in perfect unison and headed straight for the damaged chain. They were heading towards the deepest part of the ocean, so he followed them, hoping to uncover whatever secrets lay hidden beneath the waves. What he found down there would change his life forever. Deep in the ocean depths, hidden from the eyes of mortals, lay a city of magnificent coral and pearl. Towering coral heads served as homes for countless sea creatures, while pearl shells glistened like 1,000 stars. At the center of the city stood a massive statue of a woman. With flowing locks of seaweed and a crown of pearls, she was surrounded by smaller statues, each holding a shield emblazoned with the symbol of the Sapphire Dominion. Then he saw them, the ones responsible for sabotaging the chains. It was the sea gods' children, the guardians of the ocean. But why were they attacking his people? According to their murals, the sea gods had once ruled the ocean with an iron fist, controlling the tides and crushing anyone who dared defy them. But one day the gods grew bored with their power and decided to abandon the ocean, leaving their children in charge. The mortals, however, weren't willing to accept this new reality. They wanted more power, more control over the seas, so they forged chains from the purest sapphire and bound the islands to the mortal realm, imprisoning the sea gods' children and dooming their race to eternal servitude. For generations, the imprisoned gods had plotted their revenge, waiting for the chance to break free and claim the ocean as their own. They finally made their move during the recent storm, weakening the chains to let the islands drift. Once the Sapphire Dominion realized what was happening, it was too late. One of the chains was already broken and the others were in peril. But the gods had a final trick up their sleeves. They unleashed a plague upon the ocean, one that would eventually reach the Sapphire Islands and wipe out the entire Dominion. Unless they could stop the plague, everything they had ever known could be washed away in a single night. It was a lose-lose situation. Choose to wage war against an unseen enemy and risk losing everything, or unbind the chains, free the imprisoned gods and end Kaelen's rule once and for all. The choice was, what would he do? This is the host. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing. Also, don't forget to check out the podcast where you can listen to some amazing adventures set in the world of Vox Machina. The link is provided below. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.